What's up, business heroes? I am back with another fun interview. This has been really fun getting to talk with other people who are dabbling with entrepreneurship, starting businesses, and just having fun. Today, I have Beth Donahue. She is an author, a speaker, a mom, a founder of a nonprofit, and co-founder and chief business officer at Bandersnatch Books. Beth, thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Yeah, there's a lot that goes on in the upstairs of my house.
I Googled your name, and a lot of search results pop up for a lot of different things. You seem to be pretty busy.
Oh, yeah. So my son, I have 4 kids. My teenagers think it's really funny because I have it's an IMDb entry because I helped with music for a documentary. Well, actually 2 of them. So they're like, Mom, you're all over the internet. So yeah.
That's awesome.
We've done a lot.
I started in video production actually, and IMDb was kind of like, you have arrived if you
Right.
listed there for anything.
Yeah. And that's the funny part is that's actually a very small thing that I did many years ago. So I'm like, oh yeah, I am on there. I forgot about that. I'm doing other things now.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about some of those things. One of the main things I like to talk about is your role at Bandersnatch Books. Yeah. And on your site, you describe yourself as a publisher of books that might otherwise, there's the logo right there, that might otherwise be overlooked in the vast world of publishing. And I got to say, I have been experiencing firsthand, it's a vast world. My first 2 guests have also been authors. So one of my questions for you is, what is it with you people and entrepreneurship? Why do I keep running into this intersection of authors and self-employed business venture-y types?
That's a great question. No, and really, I will say this. Not all authors are in the business mindset. So it's very interesting that you say that you have had interviews with authors already. I think maybe those are just the ones that you're hearing about or seeing because it takes that mix of artistry and business mindset to be able to actually make it happen. Because I am in a lot of author spaces where there are folks that, are not very familiar with social media. They're not very familiar with having a business plan. They just really want to write their book. And that is a large part of it. You have to have a quality product, quality writing to put out there in the world. But whether you like it or not, as an artist, you also have to have a business mindset because someone is going to buy your work, right? Whether you're a visual artist or, author, video, whatever you do, if you do it in a hole all day and never get it out into the world, there is some value in that for your own purposes, but your intended audience is never going to see it. So you do have to have the business side of that as well.
The 2 folks that I've been speaking with, they got their start at least with self-publishing. I know that is very popular and a really easy way to start now. So Bandersnatch Books, how do you fit into the puzzle? What do you offer, that a larger publisher doesn't? But why would somebody who would otherwise maybe go the self-publishing route want to connect with you guys?
When you self-publish, you're in charge of everything. The cover design, the marketing, literally posting it wherever you're going to post it. That might be a website or it might be Amazon, putting it out there. And so you're 100% in charge of every aspect. And that's where, some people have been very successful self-publishing, but they do have to be the authors that have that business and marketing mindset as well, or somebody, working with them that has it. Whereas, folks who are just in the author mindset and not the business mindset, in the past, they would get their marketing and they would get their fame, so to speak, from the publishing company itself, because the publishing company used to put a lot more into getting the book out there, distributed. That's a big thing, is distribution. Publishing companies have distribution channels, whereas self-publishing, you have no distribution channel except you're calling people and saying, can I put my book in your store, right? So the big thing you get from a publishing company or a press is that they aid in distribution and they aid in marketing. Well, one thing that has changed is that the traditional publishers, the big ones even, are relying more on the authors for marketing. So a lot of times now when you submit a query or something, they may ask you things like, do you have a platform? What's your social media look like? Because they know that when an agent presents you to a publishing company, the publishing company is wanting to know, can you help market this book? So authors are doing their own book launches and things like that. So then a lot of authors were like, well, if I'm going to do all that work for a publishing company and then, only get commission or whatever, why don't I just do all of that work for myself, right? So that was one of the attractions of self-publishing, is that if I'm going to put in the work, I'd like to reap 100% of the rewards of that. So with Bandersnatch, you kind of have the best of both worlds. We are a traditional publishing company, which means that you do not pay us to publish your book. That's a vanity press, or self-publishing when you're putting some upfront costs, But you do not pay us to publish your book. We pay you. So that's like tradition. That's what traditional publishing is. We also help you get your book distributed places. We help with marketing.
The self-publish route, there's so much that is on your own shoulders. And if you're not good at any of those things, then that's really gonna kneecap your effort of being successful with your book. You might be a brilliant writer, but if you're a bad book cover designer, right, then you're kind of blocking people right at the door, right, from really wanting to kind of take the next step and even read the content to see that, like, how good of an author you are. So being able to have resources such as yourself, right, available, and helping people, kind of fill the gaps where they might not, necessarily have a strong skill set at, that's incredibly valuable.
Exactly. Cover design, layout of the actual text, all of those things that take specific skills that it's difficult for one person to have. Now, some people do have all of those skills all wrapped into one, but most people do not. So publishing through a small press like us is kind of the best of both worlds, because you're getting the support like you would get from a traditional publisher, which we are, but also we're small enough to pay attention to our authors. And that's another key difference. So let's say I wanted to be published by a Penguin. So to do that, I can't just be like, knock, knock, knock. Hey guys, would you like to publish my book? Here's a copy. You can read it. It doesn't work like that. I would first have to get an agent. So I'd have to spend, the time querying an agent, which I've actually been through the querying process. And that is a whole world of another skill set, by the way. So there's querying an agent, then the agent agrees to take you on, and then they represent you to the publishing company, and then the publishing company, would actually be the one to finally accept or, create a contract and accept the book. But there's no guarantee. So there's no guarantee to get an agent, and there's no guarantee once you have an agent that they're going to be able to get your book, a contract with a publisher. So there are multiple steps involved. It can take years and years, and I'm not saying don't do this, because plenty of people still do, and it's great. But with Bandersnatch, you have the ability to submit directly to us. So you bypass the agent step, and we look at it ourselves as the owners of the company, and we make the decisions on who will publish and who we are not able to at the time. I will say submissions are closed right now, though, because we had an enormous response to that. Many authors were excited to see that we took direct submissions.
That's great. So one thing I wanted to dig into was, you're not doing this by yourself. You have a team.
I am 1/3 of Bandersnatch Books. The other founders are Carrie Gibbons, Carolyn Gibbons, and Rachel Donahue. That is my sister-in-law. Yes, we have the same last name. So what happened was we had, well, let me actually have the book right here. We had a reading group. One moment. We had a group based on this book right here, Bandersnatch, by Diana Glyer. And we were using it to guide our critique group, I guess would be another good way to put it. It was based on how the Inklings worked with each other and gave feedback. So there's very specific, each chapter has little notes at the end that give specific examples of how the Inklings interacted with each other and gave feedback to each other. And so we would kind of emulate that in what we were doing and talk about some of our works, because we're all authors, we're all writers as well. And so we had that group, and there were a couple other people in that group as well. And then we kind of at that point had jokingly said, oh, we should just start our own publishing company. And then kind of, I don't know, that became more and more serious. We would joke about it, and then we'd be like, actually, you do have, because Carrie has a lot of experience with the publishing industry. And so, actually, you do have that past experience. And then I have done a variety of things in life. And I was like, well, I could do the businessy part. And, so 2020 happened, right? And we weren't really getting together in person anymore. We weren't doing our group. And one day I was on Twitter and I saw this notification. Your friend, Bandersnatch Books, is on Twitter. And I was like, wait a second. Bandersnatch Books doesn't exist yet. So I quickly messaged Carrie and I was like, Carrie, is this you? And she's like, oh, you caught me, because she was basically staking out or reserving our real estate. You go ahead and claim your names just in case somebody steals them before you. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she'd gone ahead and gotten a URL and Twitter and Instagram and all that. I was like, so is this actually happening? And she's like, I guess it is. And then that kind of launched our conversations and all the boring stuff, where you have to, contact the Secretary of State and get an EIN and do things like that.
So was there a moment, a sign, a tingly sensation that kind of drove you through that affirmation that, yes, this is something that we have to do? Or was it something more of just kind of I guess we're starting a business? What was that like?
I think it was more of a natural progression of things. I believe Carrie said something in one of her interviews about us being all approaching middle age and in a pandemic, and I guess it seemed like a good time to start a business. I'm not sure if that, in a way, that makes sense, and in a way, it seems completely opposite of what one might do.
So it's all a midlife crisis.
Apparently, midlife crisis.
Sometimes buying the convertible is the absolute right thing to do, I guess.
Well, I mean, if you have any spare change, I guess investing it into a new business is better than spending on a car.
I really like that story. I like how it started out as a group of friends getting together. You know each other, you know your strengths, you know your work, and you've had the practice of encouraging each other. And then here is something that, you had this idea, and you all collectively kind of came to the conclusion yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, and I will say, like you're saying, we already knew each other, and in fact, we actually went back farther than this group. There was a group before this group, and I think I think maybe the Rabbit Room is kind of at fault here for originally getting everyone together. But this was I would say this is really where it started, where the thought started. And obviously we kind of stole the name, which Bandersnatch, is actually from Lewis Carroll, the poem in Through the Looking Glass. Okay. Then it was used because there's a quote that I can never remember, but basically I think Lewis said Tolkien influencing him was like trying to influence the Bandersnatch. So which is where that originally came from. But your point about we already knew each other and kind of, had encouraged each other in the past, and we knew each other's strengths and weaknesses, at least somewhat, is a good one. Because, for example, I am the chief business officer, Carrie is the CEO, and Rachel is the chief creative officer. And that wasn't just random, oh, what do you want to be? We knew that Carrie had a lot of vision and direction for the company. Rachel is very creative. She is our poet in residence. And then, like I said, I have a background in, like you said, I started a nonprofit. I'm an integrator. If you know what an integrator is, it's kind of like project management / brand management / making sure that the vision, the company's vision that is passed down from the owners gets implemented through the managers and employees in a larger company. So anyway, that's why we were able to work together, because it's like, I'm not gonna be like, hey, Rachel, let me take over this, I don't know, photo design thing from, I know that's fine, do it, because that's your wheelhouse. We do bounce ideas off of each other. As a business officer, you're not just going to make random business decisions and not tell your partners. And they send us ideas and things, but a lot of times we're just like, yeah, sounds good to me. Great.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you have a great team working with you and you're able to play off each other's strengths. One thing I kind of wanted to touch on was, the show is called The Self-Employment Sidekick. Yes. But self-employment shouldn't be misconstrued to mean by yourself employment. Yeah. Even if you're the only person who is actually in and running the business, it's crucial to surround yourself with other people who can encourage you and affirm you and criticize you and help you steer clear of pitfalls. I actually, on one hand, am a solopreneur in one part of my business dealings, but I also have another business where I work closely with a partner. I would not be anywhere near as productive and as far along the self-employment journey if it wasn't for my partner, Brian. And if it wasn't for my wife, Susie, and a lot of other friends and people I consider mentors that have just really been encouraging and just giving me guidance and cautionary tales along the way.
Yeah, I totally agree because I really enjoy, Bandersnatch is a lot of fun. It is more fun for me to work with my friends than it is to do some of the things that I do kind of by myself. I mean, almost everything I do involves other people in some manner, but so there was a time when I was doing freelance writing that was basically by myself, right? I had clients, but there wasn't a team that I was working with. And I don't really do that anymore. I kind of phased it out. Or during that time period, I was involved in mastermind groups more because I really was working by myself and for myself. And the masterminds were I'd say an integral part of me being successful. And like you're saying, not feeling alone or, just having other people doing the same thing as you, not with you necessarily, but similarly. So I highly recommend mastermind, a good mastermind if you're able to get in one. It's maybe not for every season of life, but there are definitely times when that's, I think something you should consider.
Whatever form it takes, just having some community around you in general. I mean, whether it's business or just life, being able to connect with people. And I feel like we have felt the importance of that very sharply this past year when we've had to go without as much connection as we may have normally enjoyed, through the pandemic and social distancing and everything. But I think that's huge. I think of that truism. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
I think there's a way where you can combine those two benefits, where you can take the momentum, from your own kind of, your shower thoughts. You could take this moment of inspiration and bring that into a group, and you can inspire others and also be affirmed. Mm-hmm. Maybe they can shape it and turn it into something bigger than it otherwise would have been if you had just, kind of kept it a secret and let it die on the vine. And then you can also take the support and from your community, and use that to inspire new ideas and just to help you build momentum in maybe solo endeavors that you're doing. So, connection is crucial, and not to think that you can go it alone.
I agree.
And that kind of seems like that's the heartbeat of Bandersnatch. You're kind of stepping in as a point of support for people who might otherwise think, maybe I'll do the self-publishing route.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you said that. That's a perfect way to describe what we're doing. Because I think you read this earlier, or maybe I'm just imagining it, but that we find hidden gems off the beaten path, right? We do look for books that might otherwise not be published traditionally because they don't fit snugly into a certain genre. Maybe a traditional publisher wouldn't want to take the risk on them because it's not exactly, what people have seen before. And so we do want to be like a support for folks who are talented, who have something that's worth getting out there in the world. But we don't want them to have to do it by themselves. We don't want them to have to go that route of self-publishing. We want them to have that true traditional publishing experience and have that support system behind them and have somebody who believes in their work as much as they do.
What was the need that you saw that really drove you into pursuing this all the way through the process of filing the paperwork, taking it to completion and actually starting a company? Not just talk about starting a company, but actually doing it. What was the driving force behind that?
So all three of us had actually self-published before. We had been through that process individually. We wanted to help other people, but also we are publishing our own books through Bandersnatch Books. So in other words, we were the people that we would be serving. Carrie's book, which I'll show you real quick, Rosefire, beautiful, by the way, turned out sorry, it's dusty. Oh my goodness. Ignore the dust. I've been listening to it on audiobooks, so I had left this on my shelf. But Carrie's book, Rosefire, had gotten a lot of good feedback, but it's like a YA that was just, it didn't quite fit into some of the pigeonholes. And so we were thinking, you know what, this is exactly the type of book we want to publish, is something that we know it's good quality, but it's just not fitting in those genres neatly. And so our own works kind of helped push that forward. Same thing. My book is coming out probably November-ish. It's going to be late fall, maybe early winter. And it's a middle grade mystery. It's called No Clues, You Lose. And it's a Joey Jacobs mystery. And the team that solves the mystery are children with disabilities. They are in wheelchairs. And it's one of those things where I was struggling with my story features people with disabilities, but it doesn't highlight the disability part. They just happen to have disabilities. And that is not like this, the plot has nothing to do with like, they're not bullied and they're not like overcoming a health challenge. They just, this is who they are and they're solving mysteries, right? Well, sometimes I would get feedback, oh, we really like that you're including, people with disabilities, but let's play up the disability part and like make it like a learning experience. And I'm like, no, this book is not a learning experience. This book is for kids to be able to see themselves in it and it not be a learning, like they're not an object lesson, So we were dealing with things where our own books had elements that we knew were going to be difficult to publish or publish the way that traditional publishing wanted them published. So that, I would say that's pretty motivating to move yourself forward when you're going to get to see your own stuff looking this good, right? As well as obviously other people that you want to support as well.
So that's great. I love offering authors a little bit more creative control because they understand the nuance of what you're trying to do. Like with the book you're writing, somebody else might just take that and just completely miss the point and try to cater it to a completely different audience than what you wrote it for. And then you lose so much when it goes through a process like that. So thank you for being a support to creatives, but allowing them to keep their creativity and not feel like they have to sell out part of their soul to have success.
Exactly. It's nice to be able to say, what is your vision for this book? We're going to try to support you in your vision. Obviously, there's editing involved. It's got to be quality work. We're not going to just say, oh, thanks for that, and just put it out there as is. There's not like going to be a lack of or a loss in the process, but it's still editing with the author's intent in mind.
And it's backed by your own experience and empathy. You all were in their seat at one point and are actually, you're working from that seat right now as you're doing this. So you understand what their struggle is. And I think whether it's a publishing company serving authors or any business, like if you are able to I think you are the most effective at serving somebody else when you're essentially serving yourself. I think that's like a recipe for just being successful when you are able to take your own personal experience and basically, teach yourself what you wish you knew a year ago and give yourself the resources that you have now that you didn't earlier on in your journey.
Yeah, that is true.
Anything else you'd like to share? Any words of wisdom for aspiring authors who are maybe looking to get a book published and out there? Or anybody who's interested in starting any business, any creative, or maybe somebody who's looking at kind of doing what you did and putting themselves into a kind of a service and support role?
Yeah, so there is this one thing that amongst the Bandersnatchers or whatever we all want to call ourselves that is always up for discussion is the the pull between minimal viable product and excellence in what you're doing. If you've listened to any Seth Godin, you may know that he's a big fan of minimal viable product. And actually, this is true. There's another guy who also says success loves speed. So if you don't get something out there, if you don't go ahead and start the business and launch and like do your first thing, like, this is our first book, go ahead and get it done. Don't wait until you're never going to be 100%, 110% satisfied with whatever you're doing. So at some point, you just got to do it. And that goes for starting a business, creating a product, making a website, whatever you're doing, get to the point where it's good, it's fine, and let go. However, there's also the point that you don't want to do a bad job, right? Like, so it still has to be good. And so knowing when to say, yes, this is ready to launch. It is good. And I'm going to stop tweaking it, because if I don't quit tweaking it, it's never going to get out there. That is a skill to know, like, is the website ready to be live? Is it good enough? Because if you just play with it forever, you're going to change something on it every day and never actually, you know how this goes. So, right, I think that's my advice is know, or at least try to know when you've got your minimal viable product to you. It is good enough, but you can go ahead and launch it. Most things aren't permanent. Yes, you decide that you didn't like that font on your website. Well, you can change it later, but at least you have a website and people can buy things from you now. With books, it's a little more permanent. You got to buy like a few, 1,000 of these and you sell them. You can't really erase them from the interwebs, but you can make a second edition if you really, really need to, I guess. But that service industry, same thing. If you're going to be a coach or, a freelancer, go ahead and get your name out there, get your face on a social media platform somewhere and start taking clients, maybe build your portfolio with things you already have. You can say like, oh, I don't have a portfolio. Did you write anything ever? Like, you can put it in there and display it as a display piece, Photographers, have you taken any pictures yet at all? So nobody paid you for that, right? But it's still a good photo. Go ahead and put in your portfolio. It doesn't have to be something that somebody paid you $500 to display it as, an example of your work. So that's basically what I'm talking about.
And how much easier is it to know when it's ready to launch, or to have that push to just get it out there when you have friends standing next to you? And just be like, no, just do it.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're exactly right, because that's why in our group of 3, we all have different personalities, and some of us lean more towards the get it out there, and then some of us lean more towards the let's tweak it forever. And we're able to help each other understand, like, no, this is fine. This is good. Let's just get it out there. Otherwise, no one will ever buy this because it won't exist. Yeah, I think you're right. Having community, having friends, having business partners, or whatever, helps you make that call, because we're all blind to the things that we're blind to. We need somebody else to tell us, no, it's not quite ready, or no, it's totally fine. Looks great to me.
Well, Annie Beth, thank you so much for sharing your time, sharing your story. Where can people learn more about you and what you got going on at Bandersnatch?
Well, I believe we're Bandersnatchbooks.com. So you should be able to go to www.bandersnatchbooks.com and find our current and upcoming books and bios on all 3 of us. We're also on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on all the things. We're not on TikTok. And most of our handles make sense. So if you look for Bandersnatch Books, you're probably going to find it.
Well, thank you again for your time. And thank you to everybody who's joined us and watched. I hope that this was a fun and valuable use of your time. And yeah, go do it. Make something. Don't wait. I mean, make sure it's good, but get it out the door. And make sure you have friends that you can be leaning on all along the way, because it's really hard to do this all by yourself. Thank you again for watching, and we will see you in the next one.